Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to part 2 of eating my way through books, this series I started doing on my channel. This is an exciting one because I'm starting to eat my way or bake my way through the ACOTAR series. This video is for book 1 of the ACOTAR series, ACOTAR. I made 3 dishes that were mentioned in the book. There was a lot more food mentioned, but I feel like they put on a lot of like extravagant food parties and like calamari, stuff like that. I'm not that talented. So like I said, I made 3 dishes from the book. I'm really excited. I baked 2 and then cooked 1. I was gonna add some drinks in there, but I ran out of time from when I wanted to get this video up. So maybe the next one I'll make drinks as well. The series is so fun. I've been having a lot of fun doing it, and I've been releasing some of the like baking ones earlier on TikTok, so if you want to see them before I post them on here, follow me on TikTok. Also, all the recipes are going to be linked in the description. I don't remember what I did, so when I explained it in the video I didn't really say measurements, but I'll make sure to link every recipe that I used. Let's get baking. The first thing I'm making in this video is apple tart. There's a quote in ACOTAR where it says, "So I ate my fill of strawberry shortcake, apple tart, and blueberry pie, no different from summer treats in the mortal realm, alone beneath a sycamore covered with silken lanterns and sparkling ribbons." Of course, fucking Tamlin leaves her alone, but we are going to be making the apple tart from this scene. It was super easy, but yeah. Let's make it. Okay, so the first thing we're making is an apple tart, and this is actually really easy. I just used a pastry puff. You're gonna want a flat surface like a cutting board, and make sure it's floured or else the pastry puff will stick. And I do recommend putting parchment paper under this because transferring it was really hard. You're gonna want to roll out the pastry puff just so it's thinner and like those lines where it was folded is gone. I folded up the edges of all 4 sides so the apples wouldn't fall out while it baked, and then I pinched the corners just so it stayed together. You're gonna want to peel and slice up your apples. After you peel them, just make sure you cut them like really thin, almost to the point where you can see through them, just because they'll cook down really well, and basically the thinner the better when you're cutting apples. And then once they're all cut up, you're gonna put them in a bowl and add some melted butter. I think I did like 1/4 cup, and then another 1/4 cup of sugar. And then I never measure cinnamon, so measure with your heart with that one. I'll put all the recipes in the description, but after those are all mixed up, you just place them in your pastry puff. You can arrange them nicely so they lay flat, but I didn't really care. So you just kind of push them around until they all fit. It's okay if they're like stacked higher than the pastry puff because they'll cook down. I think I baked it at 350, and you kind of just have to check it until the pastry puff is golden because you don't want it to burn. When you take it out, it looks like this. It was so good, and it's a really refreshing dessert, if that makes sense. But oh my gosh, it was so good. Chef's kiss. The second dish I'm making is inspired by just like the grand meals that Tamlin puts on when they all like sit at the dining table. Her, Lucian, Tamlin, you know what I'm talking about. But there was one where they talked about like a bunch of different meats and like potatoes, roasted vegetables, all that stuff. I don't like to cook meat, so I stuck with chicken. I kind of made like a herb lemon chicken that I just baked in the oven, and then garlic mashed potatoes and honey glazed carrots. So it turned out really good. This also, like, not only was this good, but also I feel like like had flavors that like remind me of spring because of like the herbs and lemon that like fits in the spring court. Okay, so for the chicken, I marinated it for about like an hour and a half, 2 hours before. Sorry if you hate the look of raw chicken, I do too, but I took the chicken out of the bag and then cut off all the parts that like literally disgust me. That's the best way I can describe it. And then I put the 2 chicken breasts in a Ziploc bag. I'm cooking for my family too, so that's why there's 2 chicken breasts. I squeezed juice from 1 lemon into the bag. And then I added 2 spoonfuls of minced garlic. And then I added some dried herbs, kind of just whatever I had in my pantry. I think I did like basil, oregano, parsley maybe. I don't know. I kind of just threw some in there because they all kind of taste good together. And then shook it around and then left it in the fridge to marinate for about, like I said, an hour, hour and a half. And then it was time to start on the garlic mashed potatoes. I washed my potatoes and peeled them, and then I cut them into quarters. And then I put those in a pot with some water to boil, and then like 10 minutes before they were done, I added some garlic cloves in there to boil with it as well to make the garlic mashed potatoes. While those were boiling, I got started on my honey roasted carrots. I just used baby carrots because we had it, and then I melted some butter. I think that's like 1/4. Again, I'll put all the recipes in the description. I melted the butter and then I put 2 tablespoons of honey and mixed it all together and then coated the carrots with it. And then make sure you line your baking sheet because this will stick to the baking sheet. And I ended up drizzling more honey afterwards because I feel like the taste of it kind of cooked off. But I roasted those while everything else was cooking. And then it was time for the chicken. I just put the marinated chicken in a pan. As you can see, I'm trying really hard not to touch it. And then I also sliced some lemon to put on top as well, just while it's cooking to keep the lemon flavor. Guys, clearly I bake more than I cook because I didn't really know what I was doing, but I did follow a recipe and it's linked down below. And then once the potatoes were soft, I strained them. And then I added some butter, milk, and sour cream, and garlic powder. Kind of measured with my heart. It was kind of one of those like taste and go. And then you mash them until they look like that. And oh my God, they were so good. I love mashed potatoes. And then I checked on my carrots and my chicken, and they weren't done yet, but they were looking good. And I don't trust myself to know when chicken is done, even though I have a thermometer. So I made my dad check and pull it out. But once everything was ready, it looked so good and it tasted so good. Honestly, I might have stayed in the spring court if I was eating this, but probably not because Reese. The last thing I'm making in this video, and arguably my favorite, is strawberry shortcake. Just like that quote from when we made the apple tart, I'm also making the strawberry shortcake from that scene. And I love strawberry shortcake, but I've never like thought to make it myself because I thought it was really hard. But honestly, it wasn't that bad. The biscuits just take a minute to like get the dough and stuff, but it was so good. You guys definitely need to try it. But yeah, let's make some strawberry shortcake. I started making the biscuits. I did 2 cups of flour, and then I added some sugar and some baking powder, and then some salt. And then I mixed that all together. I added a stick of cold butter, and you want to make sure you like put it in cubes just so it's easier to mix. I ended up not using this tool because it just didn't work, and I ended up just using my fingers, which is not great when you have acrylics, but it's fine. After you mix all the butter in, your dough should look like that. And then I added some heavy cream, and then I used a spatula to mix that together. So you have your dough and it ends up looking something like this when that's all mixed in. You're gonna need a floured surface. I just used a cutting board. And then you're gonna need the dough because we are making biscuits. I started kneading it with my hands, and then once I kind of got it to stay together, I ended up using a rolling pin to roll it out. The recipe I was following said to fold it kind of like this once or twice, and then like once it's folded, knead it in that arrangement, you know. I ended up needing a bigger floured surface because the dough just like wasn't fitting on my cutting board, so I had to dirty another dish. You're just gonna keep kneading it until you get it to the consistency it needs to be. I ended up rolling mine way too thin, so my biscuits came out like, instead of slicing them in half, I could have just used two as like the sandwich part, you know. So after I did my first round, I ended up making some thicker ones. But you're just gonna want to take, I didn't have a pastry cutter like a circle, so I just used a cup. It works the same. It was the measurement that they said the pastry cutter was, so I used it and it worked out perfectly fine. But after your dough is all flattened and at the size, at the thickness that you want it to be, you're just gonna want to make the biscuit shapes. And then I didn't show this, but when you put it on your baking sheet, make sure you brush heavy cream over them so that they don't dry out while they're in the oven. And then while the biscuits were baking, I chopped up all my strawberries into quarters. Add them to a bowl and add some sugar. I think I did like 2 tablespoons of sugar, and then mix them all together and cover it with saran wrap and leave it in the fridge until everything else from this recipe is done, just so like the juices start to come out. And I made homemade whipped cream, and I don't know why I didn't compute that like heavy cream whipped is literally what whipped cream is, but I added heavy cream, sugar, and vanilla, and I just used a handheld mixer to whisk it all together. It does take a while. My recipe said 3 minutes and it ended up taking me 10 minutes, so keep that in mind. But it does start to get thicker. It just takes a minute. But this is kind of what it looked like when I stopped. You can tell when it's gonna like stay in its form, if that makes sense. It's not gonna be runny. So then it was time to assemble the strawberry shortcake. I took the thicker biscuits that I made and split them because it's supposed to be a sandwich. And then I just layered the strawberries on, and you can kind of see they have almost like, not like a glaze, but you know what I mean. And then I topped it with whipped cream, and then I added more strawberries on top and closed it to make a nice little sandwich, and it was so good, you guys. This is my favorite recipe from the video. Okay, it's done, and we're doing a taste test. This is so good. Oh my god. 10 out of 10. That's everything that I made from book 1 of the ACOTAR series. I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you have anything that you want me to make from Mist and Fury, let me know, because that is the next one that I'm gonna make food from. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.